Hi everybody, this is Maria from Landscape Skills, and I just want to show you very briefly in this tutorial how to do some rendering techniques. Very basic in Rhino. No plugins, just some general render options, materials, colors from models that we've already previously built in other modules online. So feel free to check those out if you're wondering how did we build this thing. First off, I just like to start with this type of a model here. And you can see that because there are sharp ridges, it's very architectonic. When I go to render this, the shadows are going to be much starker than if I have sort of a smooth surface like this. So let me just walk you through how you would do both. And then I also have another one that is colorful. So you can see what rendering different colors out would be like. So that'll be interesting. So to see those, we've got some multiple surface colors in here. And so just so you can get a sense of how you can use these as base renders that you maybe collage on top of later in the future. So let's start out with just the very basics. So up here under render, if you go to render properties, that will bring up a little manager for the document properties of render. Make sure that that's what's selected here. And you'll see that you can jump to the actual DPI. So 72 is typically the default, and that's relatively low for a rendering, especially if you're going to use it for something that is part of a presentation. I would recommend at least 150, but you don't really need more than 300. Keep in mind that the higher the resolution, the longer that it's going to take to render in terms of the size as well. So you can also adjust how you're looking at the different sizes. And so then down here, we've got solid color as a background. You can have a 360 environment gradient. If you're just keeping it simple, you want to just get a sense of what things look like, you can just keep it at that solid color. And you can also just keep things the way they are as defaults. As well in here are the sun settings. So if you are planning on shifting the sun, this is where you can go to the sun settings. And as long as you turn it on, that is where you're going to find how you can orbit around, have different seasons, have different months in here, and different basically angles of the sun. So I just changed that. So now the sun is different. So that'll change that. And then to actually render, what you do is you type in render, or you can select this render icon right here and you just say enter. So what it's going to do is based on those selections, it's going to render that view from that perspective view that I had open, or whatever your active viewport is with those settings. So you then just need to wait, have a nice sip of coffee, whatever. And again, it's going to take longer if it was more complex. So this is just going. Now, if you do have V-Ray built in as a plugin or added to your Rhino, then it may look a little bit enhanced. You can also export your model as an OBJ. You can open it in Blender. You could add Lumion and have side-by-side and be using Lumion techniques. So Rhino is a really great modeling program that really allows you to sync your 3D model with accurate AutoCAD design and then have all sorts of different settings just to keep it really basic that you can then collage on top of or do other things, create diagrams, what have you, but you can also go super advanced and plug in. There's also lands design, which is new. I love that. And you can use that similar to Lumion, where you can actually plant all your individual plants as objects and things like that. So, depending on what you're looking for and what level of your design, I always like to say, keep the level of the rendering actually at the level of design development. So you don't sell yourself short. You don't want to portray a design being done when it's really halfway through design. So anyway, so you can start to see already some of the shadows are coming through based on that angle of the sun. I've got some of these colors coming through, and I'm not going to make you sit here and wait and watch this entire rendering, but I did want you to see enough. And then once it does complete, you just hit this save button, save image as, and you can save it as a JPEG. So that'll do it. So that's the basic rendering properties and what to do, hit render. Now to get the different colors to show up, now for me what I did was I split these out as separate surfaces. So those are actually on their own layer. You can see here I have plants light pink, I have plants teal. but you could also have it just be one color. So I've got just one color here. Burgundy, turn those off. So that would be just one color. So if you wanted to save a different view so that you can come back to it, and maybe you want to try different options, maybe a version where the landscape is all green versus an option where all the planting with the different colors is showing up versus just the stair step version versus exporting lines or whatever you want to do, you know, that would make sense to save that actual view so you don't have to try to find it later. So what I would recommend in that case is to hit this little arrow over here and say set view named views. And then if you click save as, you can name it whatever you want. So you could call it like, view 001. Now it's going to be one of your named views. So then you can orbit around and maybe you pick another view. So I'll just pick this one. And then say set view named views, same thing, hit save. I'll call it 002. Okay, so let me show you how this works now. So if I go zooming around or I change something about the colors or what have you, then I can go here, hit this arrow, say set view, and now it's going to show up in my named views and it will automatically zoom back to that. So that's going to be really helpful for you. The other thing that you might want to try out are the different colors over on the other side. So depending on what layers you have, and whatever model you're in, so it could even be in this model. So let's say I have the extruded curves, for example. Now the color right here with the squares is just that modeling color, whereas the material is actually what it's going to render at. So if you're not noticing it, you need to check the rendering color. So let's make that like a dark blue. So make sure it shows up here, say okay, and then okay. And then I will make the planar surfaces, which are those planar surfaces from those extrusions, I'll make those a lighter blue. So make sure you double click inside of here or over here to make sure it shows up there, and then say okay, and then okay. And then if I go to rendered view, you'll see that those extrusions are a dark color, and then the planar surfaces are a light color, okay? And then I could go ahead and hit render in here, and so this is what this one is going to look like. So again, just remember that the material item is for clicking how it's going to render with the actual material applied to it, whereas that square to do with how it's going to render out. Also keep in mind that it doesn't render lines. So anything that's just a line, that's not going to show up as anything. So if you have lines turned on, you don't need them, but don't be disappointed if you're thinking that it's going to render it with that. It's not going to. Anything with a surface is going to render because light is hitting it. And really what we're doing is we're picking a view from a camera and we're shooting that view with those lighting settings. And so, you know, that's really what you're doing is you're hitting light on those surfaces that you've created. Now, if you have gaps in your model, there's going to be holes. So there's going to be things coming in and out. So if you don't have a clean model, from AutoCAD or from Rhino with your line work, it's not great. You may have some problems. You may have some more finessing. So nothing's for free, right? If you try to do something easy and quick and fast earlier, then you're going to pay for it now. So I always recommend people spend so much time on the actual line work in AutoCAD before even attempting the 3D model. It'll go a lot faster in here. And then when you get to rendering, it's going to be super smooth. So anyway, so you can see how this is starting to fill out. So if you're doing something for sea level rise, for example, and each of these contours were for a different elevation where the water's coming up, you could very clearly articulate, with a simple wash of color where the water's coming up to at different elevations. So I'll just hit X. We don't watch that and just sit here washing that. And again, you could just save some views here as well. It didn't render these lines, even though I can see them, right? Because it's not actually having a thickness or a surface. Also note that this is set to plaster, but you can select other materials in here. And then once you do, you can select some other options that go along with that. So you can have those up here. So, I don't want to dwell too much on those. This is not attempting to be a super high level rendering technique post here for YouTube, but this is just some basics. So that's it.